Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. I haven't posted a trading recap video in a while, so I felt like I should probably just make one just so you guys could kind of get a feel on how I've been trading recently. My trading has kind of changed somewhat since I last posted, but it's pretty much still the same. This is also for my new subscribers on YouTube. Thank you for like the 4 or 5 new subscribers. I don't know if you guys will watch this, but this is just for you guys, just so you guys can kind of get an understanding of how I trade, what I'm looking for, and yeah, hopefully you guys learn a thing or two. So let's get right into it. So basically, yeah, took a couple trades today. I think I'm up about $1,900 on the day, so about $600 per account times 3, right? And I basically had like 3 main trade ideas that I was looking for. Got stopped out on one time, or like went break even on one of the trades, and like stopped out for $60 on one of them. But pretty much just 3 trade ideas plus through $200 each, and I'll kind of show you guys what I was looking at. So just going into the day, just on the higher time frame, right? The 4-hour and the 1-hour, I probably shouldn't even just show you guys, but we've been trending upwards, right? So there's really no reason for me to be bearish at this point in time. I don't really stay too focused on the higher time frames, the higher time frames like the 4-hour, 1-hour. I'll kind of just use it mainly for context, like, okay, what's kind of really been happening recently. I'll just give it a quick glance, but I'm more of a scalper. So going on to the 15-minute, basically what gave me my bias going into the day was I could kind of see that we've been kind of holding this BPR, right? So if you guys aren't too sure or familiar with what a BPR is, or you're new to ICT, a BPR is essentially just a bearish fair value gap, or sorry, an inversion fair value gap, and just a normal fair value gap overlapping with each other, right? So this zone, as you guys can see, right? So when we close above right here, this becomes an inversion, right? And we also open up a new fair value gap in its place, right? So this little area, this zone right here, is like a pretty nice area of support, right, for price. So when we trade back into it right here, right, that kind of gave me a good context that this could be where price would start to reverse, right? And that's basically what happened. So overnight, Asia started, kind of trading downwards, and once we reach this area of interest, we start reversing back up and running to those highs. So yeah, zooming onto the 1 minute, as you guys can see on London, right? London, we kind of just pumped, and we kind of just started leaving these swing lows. So what I wanted to see going into the day was to kind of have some sort of bearish reaction downwards, so we could sweep all this liquidity before heading higher, right? Just so I know, just so I'd be more comfortable that would be the low being put in for the rest of the day, and then I could try to find a trade within this area, riding the momentum back to the top, right? As you guys can see right here, we didn't actually get that. Market open was right here as this line, as you guys can see. That we didn't really ended up getting that, and we just started pumping right here, right? So when that happens, you kind of just have to adapt, right? You kind of just have to adapt. So once I saw this big ass candle right here, right, at market open, we ended up taking London high, right? I want to see how we react at London high. Do we start selling back down aggressively? Do we start having bearish momentum, or do we continue to push, right? And I always ask myself that when we take some sort of liquidity. But as you guys can see, we start pumping back upwards, right? So the first step for me, I would say, when I'm looking for a trade, is identifying the current drawn liquidity. So when I saw that we kind of didn't really respect London high and start showing structure to the downside, right? We didn't really move downwards. I was like, okay, what's the next area of interest? The next area of interest for us would be Asia high, right? This is a really nice liquidity pool because it's time based, right? It's from a session, right? It's from a trading session. It's from overnight, right? And I guess we could also mark out this 15-minute right here is, right, relatively equal highs, right? That's a really nice liquidity pool because there's a lot of stop losses right here. We might want to run those later, right? So that's the first step of finding a trade for me, is what is the current drawn liquidity, right? And I was able to identify that is because, yeah, I'm bullish on the day, and even though I was bullish, I wanted a sell-off, right? So that I could try to find a trade over here. That didn't end up happening. So you have to adapt, right? You have to adapt. So what's the next best thing is the next best thing is just trying to find the next drawn liquidity, right? Where can I take a trade and ride it into? So I was able to identify that, okay, the next drawn liquidity could be Asia high, right? Can I find an entry until then? So I never was able to find an entry within this area. I guess you could have said this could have been a potential trade right here, retrace into this fair value gap and take it to to the Asia high, but I wasn't comfortable with that risk, so I never ended up taking that trade, which is fine. But I did end up taking this short right here. And you're like, what the heck, Andrew? Like, you just talked about like you were being bullish on the day. Like, why'd you ended up taking a short? And the reason I took a short is there's another thing I look for when looking for a trade, and it's probably one of the most important part is how do we react at certain levels. Always do that. Like, I'm not blindly selling, or sorry, I'm not blindly shorting or buying at certain levels. Like, I never have a limit order. I always mark it in, and the reason for that is because market conditions are always changing, right? So I always ask myself how, even though we take Asia high, right, and so, let's say we're bullish on the day, I don't know if we're gonna continue to push once we reach this Asia high, right? So say we start trading back up here and we kind of blast through, right? In this instance, sure, I would buy, but as you guys see over here, that's not what happened, right? How do we react after taking Asia high? We kind of lose steam right here and start selling. We start having a lot of selling pressure, right? Look how big these buying candles are. Look how big these green candles are. Not green candles, but these buy candles, right? They're pretty nice and expansive, but immediately we start selling back down. So we ended up getting a small inversion right here and a pretty nice 30-second inversion. So this was a 1 minute. This trade wasn't based off the 1 minute. It was based off a 30-second trade. And yeah, I felt like, you know, this was a nice trade just for a quick scalp. I know I'm higher, or on the higher time frame I'm bullish. That's why I didn't hold till like here. I didn't get greedy or here, right? I just took my money where I could, right? The nearest drawn liquidity, and got my money and got out, right? I wasn't trying to mess around and find out, right? And the reason for that is because we're on the higher time frame, we're bullish, right? There's no need to like try to fight against the trend. But in this instance, I was okay with taking a short just based off how much momentum there was right here and how we reacted at Asia high, right? Sure, on the higher time frame, I'm still bullish, but until like I see something otherwise, I'll just take a quick scalp, and it ended up working out. If I were to rank this trade, it'd probably be a B-. I probably should skip out on this trade going forward, just because it's just best to kind of align everything with your higher time frame bias. But yeah, you know, thankfully we were able to take the win and get out, so it's all good. So after that happened, right, and I saw that we weren't really able to take these relatively equal lows, right? I asked myself, okay, so how do we react to certain levels, right? I was like, okay, what's the current drawn liquidity? So at this point in time, when we're kind of selling off, right, a TP hit for me right here. I'm all out right here, right? And we start selling off. We continue to sell off within this area, right? So I was like, okay, what's the current drawn liquidity? I was like, okay, probably this swing low right here, right? Or, you know, maybe this is the current drawn liquidity as well. How do we react at certain levels? Always ask yourself that, right? So when we got to this point right here, right, as you guys can see, we never continue like selling off, right? We get a lot of buying pressure back up, and it's pretty much indicated by these wicks, right? We're trying to fight this level. We're trying to defend this level. And what kind of gave away the longs is I ended up taking another long, right? I ended up reversing my position back to my higher time frame bias to longs, right? Is because we had a pretty nice SMT, right? So if you guys are unsure with what an SMT is, or a smart money technique, if you guys are new to ICT, basically is when we take the same low on one indice and the other one does not take it. So as you guys see on ES, we take this swing low, right? The same time, right? The same swing low on ES and NQ, right? NQ doesn't sweep it right here, but ES does. And the reason this is important is because ES and NQ are correlating assets, meaning they should move the same, right? They should move the same. The market structure should be the same, right? So hold up, let me just copy right here. Oops, right here. So if this is ES right here, right? So if this is ES, NQ, oh my god, that's terrible. NQ should have the same market structure, right? Similar. It doesn't have to be the exact same. But what kind of gave it away is when there's a divergence in price, right? When one does like something else, right? So when one sweeps a liquidity pool, or you know, one doesn't sweep, it kind of gives away like where price wants to head, right? So in this instance, we could see that NQ ended up taking out this swing low, right? But right here, the same swing low right here, right? The same swing low, ES does not take it. And what that's basically giving away is ES is the stronger index in this case, and it wants to push higher, right? You could also think of it as like, since NQ ended up taking liquidity, right? Now it will give us the fuel we need to kind of blast off, right? So maybe now NQ, you know, has enough liquidity. We don't need to go lower. And this could be a point reversal where we start even pumping even higher, right? So now NQ is going to start pumping, and then same with ES, right? So you guys could look at it like that. And so basically once I saw this SMT, right? Once I saw this SMT, I'm like, okay, NQ is the stronger index in this instance, right? Because it does not want to take out the same low, right? It does not want to take out this low. And now that ES swept that low, maybe that's enough liquidity for us to drive higher on ES, right? So once ES starts pumping, NQ will also continue to pump, right? So once I saw this really nice expensive candle right here, I just entered, right? I saw on Twitter that there's a couple different trades that you could have taken, and I kind of want to go over it. The reason I took this trade was because of an SMT and a strong confirmation candle right here. It was also kind of an inversion play, but we never really technically closed above it. Your entry, if you did take this inversion play, should have been up here. But I was confident in taking this just because we were holding this fair value gap down here, and we had a really nice strong candle back up, and it aligned with my higher time frame bias. We also had an SMT, so I was comfortable with taking that this long. And I ended up getting out at the very top right here. So I always have my TB just a little bit before. I think I had my TB just like at this high. So I ended up getting right here. But if you guys held, you guys would have been able to continue riding the wave all the way to the top, which was nice. So those are my two trades so far. And then I had one final trade over here. And I'll kind of show you guys what I was looking at. And okay, so the reason I took this trade was, like I said, always ask yourself, what's the next draw on liquidity, right? So once we take this internal high, right? Once we take this internal right here, how do we react, right? Do we continue to sell off, or do we continue to like pump upwards, right? And it's the latter in this instance, right? We kind of continue to blast through, right? So now that you see that, I'm like, okay, what are potential targets, right? You ask yourself, what are potential targets, right? So after we take Asia, we could take the swing high on the 15-minute as well as the 4-hour, right? So you go to the 4-hour, mark out the 4-hour, right? And basically how I would play this was, until these highs are taken, I'm long. I'm gonna go try to find a long trade, right? So until this high is taken, right? Until this high is taken, right? So now that we ended up taking this 15-minute high that I had drawn out over here, right? So we took out Asia high at the very beginning, right? And then we sold off for a little bit, and then the next target would have been this, right? But we already ended up taking that right here. Oops. We already ended up taking it right here, right? So once we took this, I was like, how do we react? Okay, we're continuing to push upwards. And if that's the case, where can I find an entry until the next draw on liquidity, right? And that would have been this 4-hour swing high, right? Like I just drew out right here. So until this 4-hour is taken, I'm going long, right? So going into the 1 hour, right? I saw that, okay, until that was taken, let me get rid of all these lines so you guys don't get confused, right? I think this trade came from like a 5-minute idea. Yeah. So this trade was okay, no, sorry, it was not a 5-minute. So let me get rid of that for you guys to not confuse you. This was just a 1-minute fair value gap bounce. I didn't really wait for confirmation, but I just rode it until this like internal swing high. So I found like a nice retrace. I think I got a really like deep fill. I was already up on the day about $400, so I was okay risking like maybe $100, $200 for this trade. Just a cheap trade for me. And the reason it was cheap is because we kind of dug pretty deep. I have a clear drawn liquidity, right? Which is this 4-hour. Even though that was my drawn liquidity, I just went for the internal, which was right here, right? Just this small internal right here. I didn't want to hold till that 4-hour high just in case it didn't get hit, but that's my current drawn liquidity, right? So until this is taken, longs are safe for me, right? They're okay. I'm fine with that. So once I identify drawn liquidity, the second is be able to find an entry, right? What is your entry model? Like, are you okay with the risk? All that, right? So you ask yourself that. And then in this instance, I did find an entry, and that came in the form of a fair value gap right here. So when I saw my fair value gap, I saw a tap. So I believe I entered right over here instead, right? And just had my stop loss right here below the inception of the fair value gap candle. and we ended up just chopping around. We almost hit it right here on this candle right here. Never did. Just kind of played around a little bit more, but I didn't move my stop loss, break even, or anything like that. I just kind of let the play develop, and thankfully it ended up working out. And yeah, that's pretty much all the trades I had for the day, and I'm up, like I mentioned, about 1900 on the day. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if you guys, if that was clear, if it was helpful, but I hope you guys learned something, and that's pretty much all I have for you guys. I probably won't post another recap for a while, but this is just for the new subscribers. If you guys are interested with trading futures, make sure you use my discount code MONK. That's with two Ks. That'll help me out. And yeah, I hope you guys make good decisions in your trading. Good luck in your trading, like I said. I know you guys can do it. Just stick with it. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Subscribe!